Again, my name is Matthew. I'm one of the co-founders of the summit, and I want to thank you all for being here with us. Some of these guys in the back, if you want to join us, grab a seat. All those tabletops, if you guys want to come and grab a seat, that'd be great. Awesome. I'm going to turn it over now to Addie. She's going to moderate our next panel. It's Innovation and Technology. And again, I want to thank everybody for your time and attention. Thank you.
Is this on? Yes. What's up, everybody? Is everybody excited? You guys awake? All right, show them some love. Show everybody some love. It's Valentine's Day. Yeah. Thank you guys so much, Vegas Cannabis Summit. It's very nice to be out here. Thank you for everybody that showed up today. So I'm just going to get right into it. We do have a guest that is a little behind, but the weather, traffic, it's Vegas. Everyone's a little late, right? Okay. So my name is Addie Martin. I helped open the dispensary here in Las Vegas and Reno. I am also a stand-up comedian, a cannabis comedian, and a WeedTuber, first WeedTube show here in Vegas. The guys next to me, I'm just gonna go in the row here. We've got, in a second. Let me get my cards right. Okay, all the way from Massachusetts, am I right?
Right.
Nice. Now, I grew up in Massachusetts, really cool. So all the way from Massachusetts, we have Nial Demena. Nial is the co-founder and CEO of MannaMolecular Science. So you guys give him a hand. Thank you so much for coming to Vegas, man. And on his way, we have Ben Warner. Ben Warner is the co-founder of MannaRobotics. So he's on his way. He'll be joining us very shortly. Next to him is Tim Conder. We've got the CEO of Blackbirdgo. Blackbird is a tech company that provides software and operation solutions for every step of the cannabis distribution process. Whether a dispensary is looking for a point of sale software for their day-to-day operations or a cultivator is looking for a distribution solution for their products, Blackbird has the answer. And to give you guys some background on MannaMolecular Science, they were founded in 2015 by a passionate group of pharmaceutical chemists and cannabis industry experts. By bringing together some of the brightest minds in chemistry and robotics and business, MannaMolecular Science is at the forefront of innovation, distinguishing themselves as one of the industry's top developers of innovative cannabis-infused products. I copied your website.
That's us. You got
Thank
it right.
you, Google. I cheated my way through high school. It's doing really good for my adult life, too. All right, guys. So just getting into the basics of it, starting with you, how did you guys decide to pursue the career that you're working in today? Whoever wants to go first.
All right, so this one's pretty easy. I was teaching engineers at Virginia Tech, and my father-in-law asked me, he was a veterinarian who had recently sold his practice to a large national chain, and he asked me if I was interested in taking some meetings about opening dispensaries in Massachusetts back when they first were opening a medical, and I said yes, and we applied. We didn't get the license the first time around. We now subsequently applied the second round and got 3, so that was a good story. But in between then, I saw the need for really more sophisticated medical products. I knew there were products that you could make that were easy enough for a dispensary to do, and then there were products that were much too sophisticated for them to invest money in, but that could also be really good for patients. And so that was kind of the niche, and that's kind of when I really jumped into the cannabis industry.
Tim?
So I owned bicycle messenger service in San Francisco and then Reno, Nevada, and as medical use cannabis came online in Nevada, it was sort of clear to us that was sort of the way of the future as far as delivery and distribution were concerned. So we pivoted our business from sort of working specifically with legal clients into the cannabis space, doing both wholesale and retail deliveries. And very quickly it was apparent that the software in that space to help facilitate the movement of product through the supply chain was either lacking or non-existent. So we began to develop out our platform to sort of facilitate and aid in those deliveries. And so that was 3 years ago, and we've just been expanding ever since.
And I'll just chime in for Ben Warner, because I do work with him. I did found MannaRobotics with him. He got into cannabis because I basically dragged him into cannabis. He had we had wanted to do decentralized manufacturing with kind of a prototype 3D printer, and he helped us build one for our patches, and it worked really well. And so we sat down together and we're like, what can we do to bring these, to other kinds of products and get these more, a staple of the production facilities. Because if you travel around and sell products like I do, you see a lot of production facilities, and you see that it's still people putting goop into cups, gramming things, doing it by hand with pipettes, and not sterile, good environments, but they're doing everything by hand. And so having a little bit of automated production really makes things smoother. You don't always have to rely on the one person who's like the specialty pipetter person. If they leave, then suddenly your production goes way down. So I dragged him into cannabis, so it's my fault that he's in it. But he loves it now, so hey.
You're a good friend. So actually going in more into that, could you please explain to us what the 3D molecular printing is and how you guys came up with the concept?
Yeah, when we first got in, there was one company, Mary's Medicinals, that was out there, and we really are appreciative of their efforts in getting consumers excited about transdermal technology. We were kind of right behind them, and we got the good fortune of learning from some of the things that they did first that we thought, cannabis was going to grow really fast. We knew that state by state, and we needed to keep up production with that. And transdermal production, as it's normally done, is really expensive. It takes a lot of time, and when you buy a facility that's 44,000 square feet and you have this much dedicated production, you can't house a bunch of expensive, huge machinery. So that was one of the reasons why we decided to go with this form of production. The reason why we wanted to do transdermal patch is, we didn't see anything that was like kind of microdose range that could have a very bona fide medical use that would, be auto-dosed to avoid that kind of confusion. And we just felt like, the efforts at the time in the cannabis industry, it was such a new product type that there was a lot of room for improvement. Those were primarily the reasons, behind, and that's basically what we do.
I love the transdermal patch, by the way.
Thank you.
Tell when you're wearing it that you have it on. You can't tell that you have anything in your system. But the next day when it's off, I felt all my pain again. So I buy those often.
Yeah, my favorite description is it feels like a warm hug that lasts all day. Because if I can make products that make people feel that way, I'm going to be okay.
That's how I described it. I'm like, it feels like a warm blanket on my shoulders. So Tim, just specifically for you guys, what are the most forward-looking innovations you've seen in the cannabis space since adult use was legalized in Nevada?
For us, I think everybody is really kind of taking large steps, and something that he was just speaking to earlier, sort of like the automation of production and cultivation and packaging are things that I think are really interesting, not just in Nevada, but really nationwide. Watching, and there are benefits and drawbacks to those things. But they are very interesting. It's very interesting to watch a cultivation go from packaging maybe, 500 grams a day to 10,000. A process that is, sort of the norm in other industries, but really was not in cannabis, really everywhere.
Yeah, back in July, I think you told CNN Money that you guys had 30 employees and you were looking to expand by the end of the month. How has Blackbird changed since the last summer compared to now with the rec market?
So yeah, when Nevada went adult use, Blackbird was one of the only distributors that was there to service that new industry. And since July, we have expanded from 30 employees to about 70, and just entered California, where we anticipate probably 150 employees by the end of the year.
That's awesome. Yeah. A lot of lives in your hand.
Yeah.
Buy weed, everybody. Keep everybody employed. So what does the process of innovation look like within your company?
So for us, the way we look at innovation is really in service of our core competency, which is distribution, so movement of product through the supply chain at every level. And everything that we do in regards to technology circles around that, the thesis that through technology we can make distribution easier and less expensive. But we're lucky because we really try and stay in our lane to work with a lot of companies that are innovating within their own brands and within their own corporations, and are always really, really surprised by what people are doing and how exciting it is. So yeah.
Same question. What does innovation look like in MannaMolecular?
Well, it's basically I try really hard to get some of the smartest people in the room that I can, and I do everything in my power to, when you have somebody who knows a lot about one particular thing, you can rely on them and their judgment almost absolutely. I mean, not wholly, but, you can come to trust them and their opinions. And, you try to get people in the room that, can give you sound judgment about, products, liability, things like that. But who can also are excited by doing this and being in the cannabis space. Like the pharma guys that we have are some of the most accomplished people in their, in their respective fields. And they're coming into cannabis, they sit down with us and they start to consult and they're like, this is fun. They're actually in our lab doing like skin experimentation with us, doing like analytical chemistry. And, they're like, they get that sense of like something, some energy, entrepreneurial energy or something, and they like to stick around. And I think we've been able to draw a lot of talent in and innovate that way because we think kind of like a pharma company, but we still also respect the cannabis culture. We respect, that pharma hasn't treated people the way they should, and they're losing customers, and they're hurting customers, and they're hurting patients. And these people, as a product company, we look for big patient demographics that are just wholly unaddressed. And I think now when you're seeing like women and over 50 people enter the marketplace, that these are some of the consumer types that don't want it to get stoned, but they want it for as kind of a lifestyle, a wellness, something that makes them feel better on a day in, day out basis, like a vitamin D or something would help you, helps your immune system and whatnot.
Alternative medicine. Yeah, that's really good. So how do you decide who the best candidate is for your team and organization? Obviously, you said you picked the best of the best. How do you both decide?
For us, something that was really important to Blackbird early on is that we recognize the talent in Nevada. We're from Nevada, and we really love being a business that was born from the industry here. So recognizing that we don't have to go to Silicon Valley to find the best developers or, hire a headhunter to find good operations managers was sort of a part of our initial ethos. And so that's something that we still practice is we want to hire locally and find talent locally because we believe it exists. And then, sort of core to our corporate culture is, sort of an obsession with delivering on a promise to our clients of, low prices and efficiency. So that's sort of what we think about when hiring.
And it's kind of what company are you and what kind of labor force do you need? Because for us, we employ robotic technology and all this stuff so that, we don't have to have all these people doing all this repetitive tasks over and over again. I think people are much more creative and more valuable than to do pipetting for 12 hours a day. So, for us, we have a very small staff of very, accomplished people that, when we set in motion something, by the time it reaches the consumer, it has to be perfect. And that's how we feel about it. It's kind of like the process is more front-ended in terms of the labor needed. But, we're expanding, our team, and we're bringing more scientists into the field. So we feel really good about that. And people often are licensees who actually produce the patches with our process. They usually find one or two patch people who are really good with the robots and making them. And are really excited about the products. So we feel kind of responsible for those people, and we try to do like outreach to them too. So we'll have our Patch Producers Day, and we'll invite them to come and have them take them out to dinner and stuff like that. So people are very important to any business, and who you hire can create a toxic culture as much as it can create like a really wonderful culture. So that's especially important when you're growing so fast. You don't want to hate the place that you have to go to work to every day.
And I think too, just to touch on that, it sounds like, for us, we feel like there is sort of this like mix of a human touch with really good technology, and it sounds like that's sort of how you guys operate as well. Because, I think like everybody sees, like we have a very unique opportunity in cannabis to sort of like create this new roadmap for growing a business. We're fortunate that there are hurdles that exist, as frustrating as they can be, that sort of keep out big business from other industries and let us sort of create the market that we want to be a part of. And that goes, I think, speaks really specifically to technology, and sort of like as a large or growing company, what our responsibilities are in that tech and innovation space to ensure that the cannabis, the fundamentals and principles behind this plant are not taken for granted, and we sort of further that as the industry grows.
Great answers. How do you guys, since you do have people coming from different backgrounds, how do you assist a new employee to understand the culture of your organization?
Well, they're going to get to know it one way or another real quick. We usually just have team meetings. We have weekly phone calls on different projects, and you just kind of lay out the expectations. Some of what we've done in the past with some of the bigger names that we've gotten, we started them as consultants at first. They kind of get to see what we're all about, and then by the time we hire them, it's a mutual, this is a good thing that we're doing. So that's kind of our approach. We start small with a specific task, get them warmed up, and then relatively quickly we start throwing them right into the action, and either kind of sink or swim. And that's just the reality of any job, especially one where you have to do so many things, pay attention to so many rules, and in general, you have enormous risk and liability.
That's a hard one. I think for us it happens fairly naturally because, our general manager up in Reno, I think, says it best. He hires people that he would like to hang out with after work. I would challenge him on that a little bit because sometimes it doesn't seem like, that makes sense all the time. But regardless, I think, of differences within our company, everybody is really like working towards a common goal and excited about being there. And it really is like a big group of friends to a very large extent. Yeah, I guess that's how.
And I think for me, I'm trying to get more exposure to different groups that I would not think to normally work with. And that's the exciting part to me, is when you get to know these different people, they have a completely different set of experiences, a completely different lifestyle. And that's the kind of thing where I'm really excited, because I'm like, why don't I know more about this? Why don't, how can I be so ignorant as to not know that this was a part of the spectrum of people that we're serving? So that's what gets me excited about, kind of our growth. Being in 10 different states, you can see how each state is different, each different population. It's really interesting, and I try to hire from pools of people that come from very interesting background, because that makes the company, I think, a lot stronger.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It is, we aren't in 10 states, but as we've sort of started to grow into California, it is really, immediately recognizable sort of the differences between hiring in Nevada and California, and in an exciting way, people that are looking for jobs with Blackbird in California, while the sort of culture is somewhat different, are still like-minded in a lot of ways, but do bring with them their own unique experience and background, which has been kind of a really fun thing about expansion.
Do you feel it's different on the East Coast?
Yeah, it's a wholly different thing, and that's why I try to do East Coast and West Coast, because I don't want to dislike East Coast people. Come from they're more like they're more distance. They're more elitist. These are things that I dealt with growing up there, so I know it very well. And there's something really nice and refreshing and enthusiastic about the West Coast culture out here. So I think some amalgam of the two, where you can kind of take that that hardcore scientific mentality that the Boston biotech has, and bring that kind of cultural landing zone where you have Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, some amalgam of those where it's approachable, it's warm, it's meant for people. I think that's what we aspire to be.
Nice. Did you want to add? It's okay.
I was just going to say too, to my point earlier, just about getting to affect, sort of create this industry together. It's exciting to be able to really have things be really important to you as a growing company, like diversity in hiring, and get to think about those practices when, at the bicycle messenger company that I ran, we had 7 employees. There wasn't an opportunity for us to affect, sort of a lot of change at that level. But as we grow and become one of the larger taxpayers in California and have the ear of regulator, we get to do these things together as an industry that I think are really, really important, and other industries will look to and sort of take notice of. So yeah, that diversity in hiring has been something that's really exciting for us, especially in California, where it's really looked at a lot by regulators.
So you're saying future money is in consulting for other states, essentially, right? Become consultants, guys. So how do you feel that the regulations in the state of Nevada have helped spur innovation in the technology and distribution space?
Well, I'll just say this. So living in Massachusetts and having product in both Nevada and Mass, it's amazing to me because we passed rec at the same time, and a year before, we still can't sell them at our dispensaries in Massachusetts. And so it's so refreshing to be able to come out here, because I can actually go into the stores and buy my own product and buy, I like that a lot. And so this Nevada, I think, has been really good about making sure that the program got off the ground, and very quickly, because it's really ultimately going to be the operators that are going to help inform the way this program gets off. And if you set up a marketplace where you kind of let people choose what dispensaries they want to go to, let people choose what products they like, that's only going to make for quicker iteration and better products and better operators. So in that sense, I think there's only so much you can plan for. So I think Nevada has been very good in that respect, especially relative to Massachusetts.
What's the regulation that sort of excludes the transdermal patch? They just don't know how come you can't sell it there in Mass?
I do sell it in Mass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed it.
No, it's okay. No, we're in both states.
The recreational market compared to...
Yeah, I was just saying the rec market, so I have dispensaries out in Massachusetts, and we're going to be open before the rec hits, but in July 2018, 1 year after you guys did it, even though we voted at the same time, our stores are then only allowed to sell recreational and medical.
So with starting everything here in Nevada, we all went through our ups and downs. There were a lot of nightmares. How do you maintain your and your team's daily motivation and inspirations despite obstacles, pushbacks, or setbacks?
I think it's important to us that we recognize that on any given day, regulation can come down that changes the scope of our business. I think that's one thing that keeps it exciting, but then it's sort of this constant adaptation to a changing regulatory landscape. And that's one thing personally that really excites me and keeps this very interesting to me, but also has the potential to be, devastating to a business. I mean, we're talking, I have a neighbor in Santa Rosa that just had to completely shut down their laboratory because the city fire code precludes them from doing volatile extraction. And yesterday they were operating, today they are not. And I think those are the pitfalls. But to the extent that those things are possible, there are also other things that we're able to do through that regulatory structure. And I think that's just something that's important to us as a company to remember, is that like changing regulation is what allows us to even have a business. And there may be some hurdles along the way, but at least we're allowed to keep operating, and that's exciting.
How do you maintain, I pulled out my card, I figured you'd forget. How do you maintain your and your team's daily motivation and inspiration despite obstacles, setbacks, and pushbacks?
Well, for me, it's having kind of the right people around me, because you need kind of the right constellation of attitudes to deal with all of these things. Something that makes you angry could just be handled by someone else very coolly and calmly. And until you get to experience that and take little bits of those personality types and incorporate them into your own behaviors, it can be really a grind. Every day it's a roller coaster, and you just never know what to expect. And and in that, you receive some shocking good news, some shocking bad news on a fairly regular basis. And being able to have people around you that you can rely on for a certain point of view helps you get a sense of how devastating or how good these things are relative to their set of experiences. So that's I think I'm motivated just in the fact that we want to bring really good products to patients that aren't at the level that we want them to be yet, and feel like the industry's we're trying to set a tone for what we want products to be. So I think that is, anybody that joins the company has to have that motivation. We make it clear on how we spend money and all of that that's our goal. But, just in general, you have to have a diversity of people around you to keep you, mentally healthy and motivated to keep going. Because sometimes it's just like, it's just too much sometimes. And some days you're just like, you couldn't be happier. You feel like, you just... you're taking off on a rocket ship.
Yeah, I think that is very, very true. I think one of our first questions that we ask our new hires or job candidates is, how adaptable to change are you? Because on-demand delivery is sort of like that in nature, but by nature anyway, that there are just constantly things happening, but cannabis really adds this crazy layer to that. And so that's a really important attribute that all of our employees have, is sort of this go with the flow mentality.
It's true. Everything changes so quickly, especially when we were in the medical market. I'm sure you guys, the dispensary worked with Blackbird for a long time. So everything was like, today you guys can do this, today you can't do this, today you can sell this, today you can't. So it's always an up and down thing. How do you view failure as it relates to innovation, and when is it a part of the process and when is it unacceptable?
For us, I think we have very high standards for the product, so we don't put anything. We have a scientific committee at MannaMolecular that makes the decisions about whether the product goes out. So I can't even decide by the structure of the corporation that I can just put something out for a business purpose. We have those internal checks and balances to make sure that nothing gets out there that we feel like shouldn't be. But in general, it's just, what kind of industry do you want this to be? And if you don't carry that motivation inside you, that you are on the frontier of something and you have a direct influence on its outcome, then you're being naive. I want to work with aspirational people who want to make the world a better place. I want to work with people that are advocates who have serious medical conditions that somebody needs to answer. We've got a medicine that could really help these people. And if they go unaddressed or unheard, or their voices aren't given, proper attention, then, we just have really failed as an industry to galvanize all the people that use the plant. So that, I think, all of those are really, really important.
I asked, how do you view failure as it relates to innovation? When is it a part of the process, and when is it unacceptable?
Yeah, so I would say failure is unacceptable if it has a significant negative effect on customers and clients that Blackbird services. We never want to do something that's going to affect patients in a negative way or our clients' bottom line. Those things are very, very important to us. But as as a tech company and a company that's really working towards this sort of larger technological goal, I think we Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook has that saying, move fast, break stuff. And I think that's fits in well with us just because we're small and scrappy development teams, so we are moving very quickly to solve problems, and that often comes with its own set of problems, but it's always sort of working towards a larger thing that's being accomplished over time. Failure for us is like a daily thing.
And to be more kind of like, you have to be very prescriptive with the things that and you're gonna hit setbacks no matter what, because there's just too much going on all the time. And what is unacceptable failure though is like if you lose a client. For us, we're in 10 states, we haven't lost one client, and it's not like things go wrong, but it's how you respond to them that gives them a great degree of confidence. And if you respond very vigilantly and professionally, and you're very attentive, then you're glad that those kind of things happen, because it brings you closer together. They have more trust in you as an organization, and then they'll go out and vouch for you because they know, just like we know, inevitably something goes wrong. And it's not whether or not that will happen, but it's how you respond to that. If you start blaming people or this or that, that's just totally unacceptable. You have to just accept that these things happen, acknowledge them, and say these are the corrective actions that we're taking to address the issues. And if this doesn't work, these are the backup things that we'll do to correct the issues. So people feel safe when you at least have a plan for addressing failures, which is always a very important part.
Totally. I think we're all learning as we go. I mean, nobody has mastered this. It would be impossible to have done so because it's sort of like a changing landscape all the time. So we tell clients we are 100% going to make mistakes, like you were saying, but we won't make them twice. And if we do, we should be held accountable for that. And I think that's what innovation takes, right? Is you don't know the solution, so there's going to be sort of a built-in testing environment, and that's what innovation I think is about.
And those relationships are some of the most important too, because if we go in and we're like, oh, we think we can improve your patch production by 1,000 a day, but we need to try this. We've tested it in our bot, back in Massachusetts. We need to come to your facility and do it live with you. And they say yes, and then it works, or even if it doesn't and you learn something valuable from it, they're excited because they're that much closer to be able to do double the amount. And we're as excited if it does work because, hey, this works now. We can bring this to all of our clients. And that, again, feeds into this feedback loop of trust. That if you're there, I remember the first installation we did, the machine wasn't working properly, but the next day at 8 a.m. we were in the lab working on this. And it was an analytical lab, and the guy that was buying from us came into the lab for another purpose to test his bud and saw us there, working with the bot, correcting these problems, and we had it calibrated and in his facility the next day. That really impressed him, and that was one of our first clients. So, it's those kind of things where failure can be good, but it's hard to distinguish sometimes. But oftentimes, based on the other person's reaction, you'll know what kind it is.
What mindsets and qualities, you guys have kind of answered a little bit of this in your answers, but what mindsets and qualities or talents have you found to characterize top innovators, and how does one cultivate these attributes?
For me, the one, my personal idea around this is you don't want to be the person that misses something due to a lack of imagination. The world is a crazy place, and if you were to told me I would make 3D printers and transdermal patches and do all of that in 1 year and grow, I would have told you that will never happen. So, that's the thing, is people don't realize how much activity there is or what can be done until you try it. And, if you have that kind of failure's okay mentality, then you could try a bunch of different things and you find out really quickly what works and what doesn't. And, that becomes kind of an exciting part of this. But,
we talk about, I think about it a lot because it's interesting to sort of have an attribute that really fits, sort of a growing company that's something is really important to you. So we think about it a lot in corporate culture, and 3 things that I always think of are resilience, thoughtfulness, and the removal of ego. If you from what I see in sort of partners that we have and people that we love to work with, or with really impressive individuals within our own company or other industries, is if you have some degree of those 3 things, that's a recipe for success in my mind.
Very good answer. Taking it right back to you, what inspired Blackbird to develop its own point of sales and distribution softwares?
The development of that point of sale software was really in response to another technology platform's sort of continuing problems in the space. We integrate with that platform on the sort of consumer delivery end, and because of that platform's issues, had seen a big decrease in our own number of deliveries and in our customers' revenue. So instead of sort of trying to address another company's sort of internal technological issues, we wanted to fix the problem long term by developing our own point of sale. So that was really in response to sort of what we saw as sort of a lack of innovation in that specific sector.
And if you're an operator too, you get to know these POS systems very, very well. And it doesn't take long for you to start finding bugs and things that you don't like. So I agree with him. I think it's wide open, and there might be people that have different states now, but those contracts are up yearly, and there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, let's not mention the MJ Freeway catastrophe. I'll say it for you guys. I'm not attached to any company. I can say it. So, on behalf of Ben, since he wasn't able to make it just yet, can you tell us anything about MannaRobotics that maybe he would have told us today?
Yeah, so we use the method for making patches with these robots, and I convinced him that this would be a good idea to expand this into cannabis and to look at enterprise level automation to get away from those kind of repeat tasks that are just a recipe for workplace injury, claims, and downtime in production. And I think these, when you can take something that's inexpensive, doesn't take a lot of room, and can increase production and have a very quick ROI, that's a really potent thing, and it makes the industry better, and dispensaries can hire more people because they're selling more units, and the units are more quality. And plus, it's just an economics thing where if you're overfilling your vapor kit cartridges by 3 or 5% each cartridge, and this is worth more per ounce than gold, you're talking millions of dollars over the years. So just something like that, where it puts it in perspective, a $20,000 robot is virtually nothing compared to the loss. And also, if you're underfilling, you're screwing your customers, and somebody's going to notice that, and they're going to go on social media or on Reddit or someplace and be like, don't go to these people, they underfill, they're garbage. So you don't want to be on either side of that. And so automating productions allows people to expand off of robotic capabilities. So we have the robot basically has hot swappable plates, and we can go from filling vape pen cartridges to capsules to making gummies. We're going to be able to print shatter and wax, so we could do gramming. So it's just really kind of a cool thing. We can integrate cameras in it, do it, blockchain technology for quality assurance. So there's just kind of really interesting technologies that can be stacked on each other like that robotically.
Is it the licensing and everything? Is everything completely different in Massachusetts compared to here in Nevada?
Well, no, I think the way they did it, You're talking about like dispensary licensing?
Just in general, I mean, just to get your company up and running, to be able to, because
I mean, so we tried to develop a process that would be flexible enough to work and adaptable enough to work anywhere. And so it's really simple. It's the same no matter what state you go, and it meets like the highest testing standards. So we try to develop things that are anti-fragile, that have this kind of broad applicability, because that's the cannabis industry is going so fast that to be stuck, like everybody was pounding their chest being the first in Colorado, but now there's like 24 states. So Colorado's a great state. I love it. I'm proud to go shopping there. And I know a lot of great people from there, but it's just one of this whole population of people that are now being exposed to this. And so what works in one place won't necessarily work in another. But we try to make things where we can where even under different licensing and different regulatory regimes, we can go in and have the same repeatable process without too much fuss.
Very good answer. Tim, does Blackbird have any plans to expand beyond Nevada? And if so, how will that affect Nevada's operations?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Canada allows for exporting, so we're looking to buy some ships, maybe. Okay. But yeah, I mean, our ambitions are national. They always have been. There are a lot of great markets. I mean, we really look to states with a sort of distribution license class is important to us, and the ability to affect home deliveries. It's kind of our two criteria. It'll affect Nevada in that hopefully we learn from other states and are able to sort of bring that wherewithal to Nevada. It has already sort of impacted what, our movement, our expansion into California has affected already sort of what we're talking to regulators about in Nevada, and where we can make improvements upon regulations here based on some things that are happening there. So I think that's probably the biggest way.
Very good. And what are the most useful resources that you would recommend to someone looking to gain a better perspective into your industry? Are there like any websites that you guys check out daily? Any,
I would say MJ Biz Daily is a pretty good, front page for what's going on in the national picture. There's a really good everyday blast by Tom Angel. It's called The Marijuana Moment. It's a really good recap and kind of summary of all the different things, different senators, what they're saying, different states, what they're doing, internationally, what companies. It's really comprehensive. And then there are podcasts like Canna Insider, Cannabis Economy. These are all like really nicely produced media sources that can give you a picture. With some of these podcasts, they've interviewed CEOs of all these different companies. So whatever area of interest you're in, you can literally go find that interview and listen to them for no money. So if you're really truly interested, resources out there do exist for this kind of thing. MJ Biz Daily, Cannabis Economy, a podcast, Cannabis Insider, and then there's, I said one more, but now I forget what it was. Tom Angel's Marijuana Moment. Those are my favorites.
Yeah, and I like, there's a Saturday sort of weekly subscription list called Weed Week that I really like. That's a great one. I think Prohibited as a media platform is really great. They have some awesome video content. And I like all of those that he just mentioned as well. So yeah, those two.
Green Flower Media does some good long form videos that I think do try to hit the educational button on a lot of the products. So I go to them from time to time. But we're always looking for new, better sources, and just like anything in cannabis, nobody has really cornered the market on reporting and media. So just if you find a source, bookmark it, and check it periodically. And otherwise, those podcasts and news sources are pretty good.
Really good. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Nice audience compared to last year a little bit. You guys beefed up a bit. So if there's any questions, feel free to come up. I'll hand my mic over to you guys so you guys can ask. I'll come closer to the stage. If I fall, just don't laugh. Call my emergency contact.
How's it going? Nial, last time I heard you speak, you mentioned microneedles, and I just wanted to hear if there's any progress on that since we last spoke.
Yeah, they're difficult to manufacture, but that is something we're working on. They're really cool, actually. You can make them of different materials. They help penetrate the stratum corneum, so you could increase or decrease the time to onset, so it would be faster onset, absorption, and you can also do really cool things like make them of different substances that come off the patch but are embedded in your skin and deliver drugs over a set amount of time. So we're looking into that, and for like sports medicine, for pets, things that'll stay on the body, those work really well too. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely engaged in that kind of research and development. Even for that field, for pharma products, there aren't a lot out there. So we kind of feel like we're on the bleeding edge of that, and we think that they're just as a whole, topicals, and especially transdermals, are at their infancy as far as what they can do and deliver. So thanks, great question. Thank you for bringing that up.
Anybody else? All right. You come on up. She was just closer.
You were saying that you're going to start 3D printing shatters and stuff like that. So do you think within a couple of years we're going to end up having like little shapes and sizes of little dabs to take and stuff?
We can kind of already do that. So we were thinking like little pumpkins during Halloween,
different
and
brands have their own shape and stuff.
yeah, you could do a logo in shatter or wax, and you could do it exactly to the weight that you'd want it to. We also, I don't know, I haven't seen these commercially, but they might be out there, but, we can do these things called dab dots, which we think like are little, like pre-rolls, but for dabbing. So, again, that's kind of a technology-enabled product that you couldn't have, but, we're trying to add more things like that. Yeah. It's coming up. We want to be, there's all kinds of different shatters and waxes out there. And so, not having a standard material to print from, poses some challenges.
Tim, you talked about how being in the cannabis industry can be really exciting, but also could be possibly detrimental. Are there any measures that your company is taking to, just in case, like a plan B, that maybe some of the smaller companies could kind of follow after? And then Nial, you talked about how you're a people person. So what are the top 3 things that you're looking for when hiring at your guys' company?
So, I mean, in all honesty, we don't really have a plan B. Either this works or it doesn't. But what I would say that we do and that we invested in heavily up front, even when we really couldn't afford it, was making sure that our voice was heard at a regulatory level. And I think that is something that any business, large or small, can do, because some of the most impressive change on a regulatory level that I've seen has come from either patient advocates or small business owners just showing up to every single city council, public opinion, public comment meeting that there is. And, it really, big business doesn't show up to those things. They send their counsel, but they're not as invested as the business owner. So that's really one way that we sort of shore up our existence is through efforts of that sort.
I think cannabis was built on the back of people that take risks anyways in this industry. It's one of those things where you kind of are like the first to do it, and you just do it until someone says no. And at that point, just have enough bail money.
It's an apt summary, actually. The 3 characteristics. First, it's going to sound obvious, but like the skill, position, fit, is the person have the skill set that I'm looking for the position. 2 is, one of the things that I love about, being in the position of being CEO is, just like myself, you get 1 or 2 people to believe in you sometimes, and, maybe you haven't been given the shot. And so I try to find people that respond well to increased responsibility. And we hired somebody to do all our packaging, and started out as one person, and then he built a team, and now he wants to do booths and stuff, and it's like, the more responsibility I'm handing him, the more he's excited, the better a job he's doing. So I try to look for people that are kind of self-motivated, but if you give them more responsibility, they respond very well to that. And then I also kind of look for people who, are trustworthy, but in the sense that like they can follow the instructions the way I intuit them. So I can give you a list of things to do, and I try to be as objective in these are the tasks, but there's always some, interpretation in these things, and I don't mind explaining to somebody I want it done a certain way, but if you're not changing your behavior after that point, and you are making the same mistake 2 or 3 times, that does get under my skin, just because I want to help you. I used to be a professor in college, so I know what it's like to have to drill something into people, but at the same time, there's just so much coming at me all the time that it's literally impossible for me to give someone enough attention to coach them 2 or 3 times to do it the way I want it to do. So, I like people. I like to sponsor them if I think that there's something innate in them that will respond well to the position. And we've had a number of people hired that way, and we'll continue to do that. So, it's those qualities, but that they're hard to describe, and that's why HR is not a science. It's really hard to flush those things out of people in an interview or over a short couple of days or weeks.
Really, really quick, I would say I know it was his question, but I'm going to steal it really fast. If you're looking to get into the cannabis space, in my opinion, the best thing that you can do as a job candidate is to have an encyclopedic knowledge of the regs in your location, because that is indispensable.
Yeah, a lot of people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, I want to do this," and I'm like, "That's impossible. We'll all be arrested. Thanks, but no thanks." Having the knowledge of the local regulations is a big one, and having some knowledge about the company. That's too often I get really generic inquiries, and it's like, my job isn't to help find a position for you in the company. Your job as a candidate is to tell me that you are filling a thing that I'm not thinking about, or you can fill it better than somebody that I already have on my staff.
My question is for Tim. I was wondering, does Blackbird make any sort of efforts or do any community outreach aside from you speaking on a panel? How does Blackbird work within the community to let Nevadans know how your company works and what you guys do on a daily?
Yeah, so I would say that up until our bandwidth has been stretched fairly thin as we grow and expand, but that we have a wonderful marketing and advertising person and community have just started doing community outreach through those channels because, like I was saying earlier, Nevada's our home. We really want people to know what Blackbird is and that that it exists. I would say part of that is our message has been a little unclear over the past couple of years, and that is attributable to really it being very important to us that our dispensary and retail relationships are sort of solidified, and that the retailers understand that we're really here to sort of propel their business through home delivery and pickup, and that we're now only getting to the point where we can start to sort of advocate on our own behalf and really let people know that our platform exists for them to have access to medication and cannabis.
Very good. Is that it? Nobody else? You sure? Okay.
Are you both in Nevada, and what would be the best way to go about applying with you guys and whatnot?
We're careers@blackbirdgo.com. We're always hiring. I live in Reno, but I split my time currently between there and San Francisco. So, but we're at Mike's in the back. You could get him.
Yeah, we're in both. We're out here as well, and just go to the website info@Manna. It'll come across my desk at some point, and just make it concise and to the point, and we try to, I think we do a really good job responding to all the inquiries that we get. So I could also give you my card. You can contact me directly.
Bud Tender Fight Club's also a really good resource if you guys are looking for employment. MannaMolecular spoke there before. Was it Ben that was speaking?
No, that was me.
Oh, that was you. Okay, I apologize. I was paying attention. I was listening, but focusing on the table.
That's okay.
So, and you know, one of the best ways for you guys to get hired is essentially how everyone's ever gotten hired in a real job is cover letter, and resume. Your cover letter, make sure that you know, shows your passion for this industry, or at least your determination to want to learn about this industry. And your resume, just be as honest as you can. People will fact check, they'll, you know, call you out on your stuff. If you say you're a grower and you haven't really done much in the cultivating world, you're gonna get called out real quick. And just that little bit of distrust is going to ruin your entire experience. But if you're honest that you don't have a lot of experience, they'll hire you on just because it's nice to kind of teach people, you know, what you do within your company.
And also, due to the regulations in a lot of states, knowing that you can pass a background check is usually a pre-qualifier. And I know that there are some really good organizations like working to eliminate some of those rules, because as we know, prohibition unfairly targeted certain groups that caused them to go to jail and get records in the first place, and then are denying them, you know, jobs and access with those same regulations. So I think it's incumbent upon us to, you know, stand up for those people, but also, you know, we have to still abide by those regulations as they exist. So, you know, knowing what that is, or even if you don't pass, if being upfront about that, you know, I think would be very, very good for us, and it wouldn't necessarily automatically mean a disqualifier. It's just that, you know, we could better know how to suit you and place you in the organization.
And since we have 1 minute left, this is more for the people in the culture. I'm not sure if you guys consume, but what's your favorite thing to do when you are stoned? And if you do consume, what are you guys smoking lately?
Yesterday I was with Bloom Farms. They're not currently in Nevada, but are in California, and they have like a 1-to-1 pen that I really like. And my favorite thing to do is work, answer emails, like get wild on email.
I love money too, I get it.
Mine for me is mostly sleeping, you know, with an edible. If I am thinking about too many things, I'll take a little tiny edible and go right to sleep, and it's great. If not, you know, I sometimes trail run with our patches on, so I like doing that. But also playing video games and cannabis. That's as cliche as that is. It's true.
It's feeding into the stereotype. All right, you guys, thank you so much. And if you guys have YouTube, subscribe to Bake and Wake Review since you're writing stuff down. Please give it up for everybody here at the Vegas Cannabis Summit, and thank you guys for coming out.
Please, guys, keep it going for this panel. That was fantastic. And for yourselves, we're going to be back in just another half hour after a break, allow you guys to meet each other and say hello to the panelists. At 3:30, we have probably one of our most important panels of the 2 days, and that's activism and education. So I hope you stick around for that, and we'll see you shortly. Thank you.